Hi, it's been a long time since I've recorded, but I'm continuing with Bickley's Thunder Egg, and we're in chapter 7 called Bickley's New Coat. Mother built up a huge fire under the boiler while the boys sat on the table over their mush and milk. Bickley wasn't thinking of the goose anymore. He was thinking about the big black coat. He knew his mother had no way of making him a coat or getting him one between now and the time school started tomorrow morning. But his heart sank lower and lower, down into his shoes. Mother's old black coat was cut very full in the back to make room for a bustle. It was rather short on her, but it would be rather long enough for Bickley. Yes, it would be long enough. Don't feel so bad about it, Bickley, Mother said. She came over and stood by his chair. She patted his head. It will only be for a few days, and it will keep you warm. She gathered the boy into her arms and sat down in the rocking chair by the stove. Bickley felt something warm and wet on his face. A tear? Mother was crying. Then Bickley knew he would wear the old coat with the bustle in the back and not complain, for Mother loved him and was trying to do the best thing about the coat. After all, she hadn't expected him to give the soldier his old blue coat. Then there was the goose to think about. His mouth watered and his throat ached at the thought of how roast goose would taste after school tomorrow. He was looking forward to that day, to that all day, no matter how hard things might be. Bickley walked into the school grounds that morning wearing the big black coat with the bustle back, and there were shouts of derision, and a new name was coined. Grandma Lucy, Grandma Lucy, the children shouted in a frenzy of glee and mischief. Grandma Lucy, dear Grandma Lucy. Bickley set his eyes straight ahead on the schoolhouse steps and marched up them without looking to the left or to the right. He took the hateful coat off and hung it with the others in the entryway. Now he'd be called Grandma Lucy all the time. This was even worse than Soldier or even General Snoot. At least they were men's names. Overwhelmed by humiliation, he went and sat at his desk. When the spelling class was called, Bickley stood next to Pete Whitley, who occupied his usual post in the front of the class. The first word was owl, and one by one the whole class missed it, even Bickley. Now, Peter, the teacher said kindly, here's a word the whole class has missed. You know how to spell it. I drilled you on it yesterday, and you spelled it right for me 10 times. Now, spell owl. Peter's eyes lit up with a savage joy. O-U-L, he spelled with a loud voice. Hurrah for me, I get head mark. He started for the head of the class, but Miss Kitty met him halfway to his goal and laying a firm hand on his shoulder, gave him a jerk and a shake. You little fool, she cried. You spelled it wrong. Go back to where you belong. Bickley shrank in shame over his friend's mistake, but he had little time to be worried for Peter. Spelled dunce, the teacher shouted at him. The lad stood petrified. Spell dunce. Miss Kitty took a step forward. Still, Bickley couldn't collect his wits or even imagine how to spell dunce. The teacher came a step closer and raised her hand. Bickley dodged a sharp slap, jerking violently to the left. The whole line of spellers went over like a row of dynamos set on end. Bicknell, Hallville, Ross, the teacher called over the din of confusion. You will stay in at recess. I will settle with you. Class is dismissed. Bickley sat in his seat all during recess, in anger in his heart. He would get even with Miss Kitty. He and Peter would think of some good way to get even, but Miss Kitty's sudden anger had cooled, and she spent the recess writing a letter. The bell had rang close to close the recess period, and the other children marched into the room. Pete whispered to Bickley, Did you eat the goose? Then Bickley remembered the roast goose that would be waiting when they got home tonight. How could he have forgotten it? He looked at Tommy, shivering under his ragged jacket. Tommy didn't have enough to eat, not really enough, and the goose would taste good. At noon, when the boys saw the soldier Ralph approaching the... At noon... Let me try that again. It was at noon when the boys saw the soldier Ralph approaching the school ground. It's our soldier, Bickley shouted, and the 4 boys ran to meet him. How's the goose? He grinned as he looked down at them. He was wearing the old blued soldier coat, and on him he looked fine. Oh, we haven't eaten it yet, Bickley said. We will have it for supper tonight. The soldier's eyes looked sharply at the black coat Bickley was wearing. Was that your other coat, Sonny? He asked in his deep voice. Well, it's one of them, Beckley confessed. Somehow he knew Ralph understood about the old coat, and even about this black one with the bustle back. He looked straight into the soldier's smiling eyes, and he didn't feel ashamed or embarrassed. Did you boys ever see a house with a rose vine climbing over the front porch and two little green windows under the gables? The man asked the question without looking away, with the same warm smile on his face. My grandma used to have a house with the rose vine over the porch, Neil said. It was a red rose vine, too, but she doesn't live there anymore. She lives with us. Does this house have two little windows under the gables? The man asked. I don't think so. Neil scratched his yellow head along with his neck under his cap. Does the window have to have little green windows? Well, the house I'm looking for must have two little green windows up under the gables, Ralph replied. Well, why do you want to find it? Bickley asked. Do you want to live there? No, he said, with a look of sadness creeping in his eyes. No, a soldier friend of mine used to live there, but he was killed in the war. He told me about his house, and I want to see it. The boys looked at each other. They liked Ralph. He had shot the goose for them, and he spoke kindly to them, almost as if they were grown men. They would have loved to be able to help him find this house with a rose vine over the front porch. But it was winter time now, and none of them could remember which houses had rose vines until spring should come and the roses bloom again. A sharp clang of the school bell drew them back to the schoolhouse door. Bickley turned at the entrance to wave at Ralph. He still stood at the edge of the playground with his black hat in his hand. Then he raised it with an elegant gesture, swept the old hat low to the ground, and then high over his head. Maybe he'll be waiting for us when last recess comes, Pete whispered to Bickley. But when recess came, no soldier lingered about the Ferguson school. It was close to 4 o'clock, and Bickley began to think more and more about the goose. How near would they have to come to the door of home before they could smell it? Had Mom gotten an onion or a few potatoes to cook it with? Would she have it stuffed with dressing? Bickley sat at his desk thinking hard about the goose. So hard about the goose he forgot where he was. His mind wandered far off places where roast goose and mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie and other luxuries should be abundance on every side. He was awakened from his daydream with a sharp voice from the front. Bicknell, open your book. Stop your daydreaming and get back to work, or I shall have you come to the front of the room. Bickley hurried and got out his Steele's psychology. He was not willing to take any chances to hide and go to the front of the room. Then he had to stand in a corner with his face to the wall, and a book in his hand. If he so much moved a foot or a hand, there would be a smart cuff to his ear. He bent over the Steele's psychology, determined to master his lesson. The colored picture of the beginning lesson of the chapter grew Bickley's attention. Underneath there were words written. He spelled them out. It said, alignment canal. Now, Bickley had no idea what kind of canal that might be, but clearly the picture was a human being. He knew that these things were pictured in color on the figure were the insides of people, their stomachs, intestines, their livers, their lungs, and brain. He wondered if Miss Kitty looked like that on the inside. Very likely she did. A bright idea came into his mind. He drew out a piece of paper from his desk. With care and considerable skill, he copied the figure on the page, but he gave it features with a proper head and a top knot. Then he sketched in the lungs, the liver, stomach, intestines, and all the other colored things on the picture, making them as faithful in detail as possible. It took a long time, and when the drawing was done, he felt very proud of it. He would show Tommy and Peter and Niels. He wrote in big letters at the top of the sheet, Miss Kitty. That's the end of chapter 7.